So let's find out, why do newborn loses heat? So the main important four reason is, first and the most important that you will always answer the first, is the large surface area compared to the body weight. Their surface area is larger compared to their weight. Second is, they have very thin skin and little subcutaneous fat. So their subcutaneous fat, which act as a heating insulation, is not there in case of a newborn. They are born wet at birth, and that increases the heat loss through our evaporation mechanism. So that is why in our initial step of resuscitation, we always tell to dry the baby, because the baby is predisposed to develop hypothermia through evaporation, because they are wet at birth, and their inability to shiver, they cannot produce heat unlike the adults through shivering mechanism. So they cannot shiver. They have brown fat instead, which I will explain about it later on. Now let's talk about the mechanisms through which a baby loses heat. So first is the evaporation, which I already talked about, that they are born wet at birth. So this is what I've tried to show, that they are wet, and the heat loss through evaporation is one of the mechanism by which a baby loses heat, which is a very important mechanism. That's why you ensure that the baby is dried immediately after birth. Only when we avoid drying, immediate drying is less than 32 weeks, in which we place the baby immediately in the plastic bag. Second mechanism is conduction. So to explain conduction, what I have tried to show here is a baby who's lying on a cold surface. So the heat loss that is through the direct contact of the baby with a cold surface is the conduction mechanism of heat loss. So that's why we ensure that the area and that we place the baby on a resuscitator or a radiant warmer, or if the baby is otherwise fine. This is the mechanism why this is the reason why we are placing the baby in direct skin to skin contact with mom, because we are ensuring that the baby does not lose his heat through conduction. When the mom's body temperature is warm, the baby's temperature is also maintained. All right, so this is the second mechanism through which baby loses heat. Now let's talk about the third mechanism of heat loss, is convection. From the name, how I've tried to memorize VEC. VEC means ventilation. Ventilation means baby losing heat through cold draft of air. So if the baby's if there is an open window, or if there is a fan that is sending cold draft, it's simply that the heat that is lost through a cold air, not the surface. Conduction was with the surface. Now it's the cold draft of air. Heat that is lost through air is convection. To memorize it, VE, VEC means, just remember it as ventilation. Ventilation means cool draft of air coming. All right. So this is the third mechanism of heat loss. Now let's talk about the fourth mechanism, radiation. You will find this confusing, so listen to me carefully. In this form of heat loss, the baby loses heat when it is near a cold surface. All right, it is not touching the baby. So I have tried to show a wall here, a cold wall. Baby is undressed, that is, there is no heat trapping mechanism. It will going to lose its heat to the cold surface, in which he is not actually touching the cold surface. In conduction, we were touching the cold surface. We were on the cold surface. So radiation is transfer of heat to a nearby cold surface, example a window or a wall, without even touching it. So the baby is actually not touching them, still it's losing its heat. So this is the important difference between conduction and radiation. In both there is a cold surface, in which conduction the baby is touching the cold surface. In radiation, baby is not touching the cold surface, even if it is losing heat through radiation. So these were the 4 important ways how a newborn loses heat. Hope you liked it.